Since the dawn of time, human beings have stared into the great unknown, death, and asked, what lies beyond? The fear of death, and the hope for something more, became the very foundation of early spirituality, myth, and religion. Ancient civilizations, scattered across continents yet united in mystery, built their entire cultures around understanding and preparing for the next world. They saw death not as an end, but as a passage, a rite of transformation that required knowledge, reverence, and spiritual tools. In ancient Egypt, this belief was so powerful that they spent their lives preparing for their deaths. Pharaohs and nobles commissioned elaborate tombs filled with golden treasures, food, and scrolls, especially copies of the Book of the Dead, a mystical guide designed to help the soul navigate the treacherous terrain of the Duat, or underworld. Every step of the journey was mapped, facing demons, crossing rivers, and eventually standing before Osiris for the weighing of the heart. If the heart was lighter than a feather, the soul was welcomed into the eternal field of reeds. If not, it was devoured by a monstrous deity. Far to the east, in ancient China, elaborate rituals were performed to ensure ancestors remained at peace and could offer blessings from the beyond. The living and dead were seen as part of one cosmic family. Burial sites included spirit tablets, food offerings, and talismans, tools to guide and comfort the soul. Meanwhile, in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh speaks hauntingly of death's permanence and a desperate quest for immortality. Gilgamesh, after losing his beloved companion Enkidu, journeys through terrifying landscapes in search of a way to bring him back, a story that mirrors the emotional desperation we still feel today when facing mortality. In India, Hinduism's Upanishad spoke of reincarnation, karma, and liberation, moksha. Death was a transition point in an endless cycle of birth and rebirth. The idea that the soul could carry memories, duties, and energy from one life to another introduced a profound accountability to life's every action, and the Zoroastrians of ancient Persia believed in a final judgment after death, where souls crossed a bridge that either led to paradise or a fiery abyss, depending on the choices they made while alive. Across all these civilizations, one truth was clear. Humanity has always longed to know what happens when we die. They built pyramids, chanted prayers, carved symbols, and composed verses, not merely to honor the dead, but to decode the mystery of death itself. Each civilization contributed a piece to the eternal puzzle, whispering across time, "There is something more. You just have to find it." If early civilizations openly explored death, later ages were marked by control, censorship, and concealment. Some of the most powerful writings about life after death were either lost to time or silenced by those who feared their implications. These were not simple myths or stories, but detailed accounts, mystical blueprints, and symbolic keys that claim to unlock the truth of what happens when we die. One of the most vivid and powerful examples is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Thodol, which describes in extraordinary detail the exact stages the soul experiences between death and rebirth. Rather than a one-way descent or a static judgment, it presents death as a journey of light, fear, illusions, and choice. According to this sacred text, after death the soul passes through a series of bardos, transitional states filled with visions of deities, manifestations of one's own consciousness, and temptations that can either liberate or bind the soul. The book wasn't just mystical, it was practical. Monks read it aloud at a dying person's side to help them cross peacefully. Meanwhile, in the ancient Middle East and Mediterranean, early Christian sects known as Gnostics penned radically different teachings than what would later be accepted by the Church. These mystics believed that the soul descended from a divine realm, became trapped in the material world, and could only return to the light by acquiring secret knowledge, gnosis. Their texts, like the Gospel of Thomas, Gospel of Philip, and Pistis Sophia, speak in cryptic language about the soul's journey, cosmic rulers, and the illusion of physical death. They emphasize that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that awakening to this truth was the path to eternal life. However, these teachings were seen as a threat to growing institutional religions. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, under Roman Emperor Constantine, marked a turning point. Christian orthodoxy was codified, and dozens of alternative gospels and teachings were declared heretical. These writings were destroyed, buried, or driven underground. For centuries it was believed they were lost forever, until in 1945, in a cave near Nag Hammadi, Egypt, a farmer unearthed sealed jars filled with ancient manuscripts. What he found shocked historians. 52 texts, including Gnostic Gospels that offered radically different versions of Christian doctrine and astonishing insights into the nature of the soul and the afterlife. Other forbidden works include the Dead Sea Scrolls, which hinted at secret priestly orders and apocalyptic visions of judgment. The Voynich manuscript, still undeciphered today, contains hundreds of pages of unknown symbols and strange botanical diagrams. Some researchers believe it may include mystical knowledge from lost sects. In Europe, medieval books like the Ars Moriendi, The Art of Dying, gave readers prayers, rituals, and symbolic imagery to prepare for the final breath. What binds all these texts together is a haunting possibility that at some point in history, humanity may have come close to uncovering what really happens after death. But that truth was buried, not because it was false, but because it was too powerful, too liberating, too dangerous for those who wanted control over the gates of heaven. While some ancient texts were lost to time or buried in deserts, others were deliberately hidden, whispered about in secret societies, and protected by guardians who believed their contents were too powerful for public knowledge. Among these were the so-called forbidden manuscripts, books that dared to chart the journey of the soul with unsettling precision and detail. Their origins are obscure, their language is often indecipherable, and yet across cultures and continents they share startling similarities. Step-by-step accounts of death, transition, and spiritual ascension. One of the most famous is the Voynich manuscript, a book that has confounded linguists and cryptographers for over a century. Written in an unknown script and illustrated with bizarre, otherworldly plants and cosmic diagrams, some believe it's a coded manual of spiritual transformation. Others think it's a hoax, but a few fringe scholars insist it holds the key to unlocking higher planes of consciousness, if the code can be broken. Then there are the grimoire texts of medieval Europe, books like the Ars Notoria and Key of Solomon, which claim to contain divine knowledge passed down from angels. Though often associated with magic, these books frequently detail rituals meant to awaken the soul or invoke protective spirits that would aid the dead in their passage. In remote monasteries, especially in the Eastern Orthodox and Coptic traditions, there are rumored to be hand-copied manuscripts, kept locked away, that contain liturgies for guiding the soul through purgatory and into paradise. In ancient Islamic Sufism, too, there are whispered stories of a hidden book, known only as Kitab al-Ruh, the Book of the Soul. Referenced by mystics like Ibn Arabi and al-Ghazali, it is said to describe the exact sensations the soul experiences when it detaches from the body: a pulling, a rushing upward, a moment of complete clarity, and a passage through layers of reality, more real than anything on earth. Though no physical copy of this book has ever been verified, its presence in Sufi oral tradition remains strong, passed down from master to student across generations. These manuscripts often emerged in times of great upheaval, times when society questioned its very purpose and individuals began to look inward for answers. Whether kept in the dark by religious authorities, burned by empires, or encrypted by mystics who feared their misuse, these forbidden books represent a lost spiritual technology, one that promised not just knowledge, but liberation from the fear of death. Among all the whispers and lost scrolls, there is one legend that refuses to die. The story of a single ancient book that reveals exactly what happens when we die, without symbolism, without metaphor, but with raw divine truth. It has no confirmed title, though some call it the Book of Passing, the Soul Codex, or the Revelation of Realms. Traces of it appear in scattered fragments, in Babylonian hymns, in Greek Orphic verses, in ancient Indian sutras, but the complete book has never been found. Or perhaps it has been found and hidden. According to accounts passed down through secret sects and esoteric scholars, this book described not just the afterlife, but the mechanics of the soul, how it detaches, how it perceives, what it sees, and how it is judged, not by a god, but by itself. It spoke of 7 gates the soul must pass through, each confronting it with truths it denied in life. It named beings, guardians, not angels, who assist, question, and sometimes challenge the soul in its journey. It gave warnings, too, about attachments, regrets, and the energy that binds us to this world even after death. It is said that early Zoroastrians referenced this text before their temples were destroyed, that Greek mystery schools taught its contents before being absorbed into Roman Orthodoxy, that even the Vatican, deep in its secret archives, holds fragments of it labeled prohibited and sacrilegious. Stories claim that Constantine, Caliph al-Ma'mun, and even Napoleon sought this book, and that those who read it either went mad or became prophets. Some say the book was hidden because it removes the need for religion. Others believe it was silenced because it proved that death is not the end, but a mirror, showing us everything we've ever done, all at once, in unbearable clarity. For empires built on control, for institutions that promised salvation, this was dangerous. A soul that knew its own path could not be dominated. Today, some scholars claim to see traces of this book re-emerging in unexpected places. Dreams, chants, meditative visions, near-death experiences that echo its descriptions. Whether real or legend, the idea of this book persists, haunting the corridors of history like a forgotten ghost, waiting to be rediscovered. The dawn of the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries brought a seismic shift. After centuries of religious dominance, humanity turned to reason, logic, and observable truth. Science, not scripture, became the new source of authority. Yet even as telescopes scanned the heavens and microscopes peered into cells, one question remained untouchable: what happens after we die? It was a topic too mystical for laboratories, yet too essential to ignore. Philosophers like Descartes, who famously declared, "I think, therefore I am," believed the soul was distinct from the body, a non-material substance. He and others speculated that consciousness might exist beyond physical matter, but they lacked the tools to prove it. Still, the hunger for answers endured. Physicians began documenting the final moments of dying patients, noting strange patterns. The sensation of floating, visions of lost loved ones, feelings of peace or terror. Was it merely a trick of the brain, or the soul preparing to depart? Secret societies that thrived during the Enlightenment, such as the Rosicrucians and Freemasons, quietly merged ancient mystical teachings with modern science. These orders preserved alchemical texts, sacred geometry, and old death manuals, believing that true wisdom required both reason and revelation. Within their chambers, initiates reportedly studied soul maps, chanted invocations, and even performed symbolic rituals to simulate death and rebirth, seeking first-hand knowledge of the soul's path beyond the veil. By the 19th century, curiosity had turned into obsession. The spiritualist movement exploded across Europe and America, driven by seances, mediumship, and a desire to speak with the dead. Even famed scientists like Alfred Russel Wallace, co-founder of the theory of evolution, openly believed in the soul's survival after death. Experiments were conducted in darkened rooms, tables levitated, strange knocks answered unspoken questions, and all the while the boundary between science and mysticism grew thinner. While academia scoffed, ordinary people flocked to seances, hoping for a message from beyond. Governments and universities quietly funded research into what was being called the soul field, a yet undetected energy form said to linger after death. Though mainstream science never confirmed it, whispers persisted that behind closed doors, the frontier of death was being studied more deeply than the public was allowed to know. As science edged closer to the mysteries of the soul, another phenomenon began demanding attention, one that crossed time, culture, and religion with haunting consistency: near-death experiences, or NDEs. Thousands of years ago in ancient Greece, the philosopher Plato recorded a story in the Republic about a soldier named who died in battle and returned to life on his funeral pyre. Claimed to have witnessed souls being judged, ascending into the heavens or descending into the earth. He described a cosmic axis, spinning with light, and the soul choosing its next life before being reborn. It was more than mythology. It was an early NDE. In India, yogic texts spoke of the Chitakasha, the inner sky seen at the moment of death. In indigenous African and Native American cultures, tribal shamans described traveling through tunnels, meeting ancestors, and seeing their lives play out like visions before returning to their bodies. These accounts, spread across history and geography, told the same story again and again. Death is not silence, it is passage. In the 20th century, with advances in medicine, people began to survive events that would have once meant certain death: cardiac arrests, brain failures, comas. And when they awoke, many told the same story: a tunnel, a light, a being of overwhelming love, a life review, and a message. It is not your time. Dr. Raymond Moody's groundbreaking 1975 book, Life After Life, documented dozens of these cases, sparking a revolution in public awareness. Since then, thousands of near-death experiences have been collected, globally, from children and atheists, from priests and doctors. Their stories often include verifiable facts they couldn't have known, conversations heard while unconscious, events happening miles away, or encounters with dead relatives no one told them about. What's most astonishing is how closely modern NDEs mirror the descriptions in ancient texts, from the Tibetan bardos to the Egyptian underworld. These aren't hallucinations. They appear to be real experiences of consciousness beyond the body. And while skeptics still argue they're neurological glitches, others suggest something far more profound, that these are glimpses into the process of death itself. Some believe the mysterious book, spoken of across civilizations, may not even be made of paper. Perhaps it is a memory etched in the soul, awakened at the moment of death. A script that plays out not from a library, but from within us, written before we were born, guiding us home. As the 20th century surged forward with technological advancement and global conflict, the mystery of what happens after death did not fade, it simply went underground. Beneath the noise of wars, political revolutions, and scientific discoveries, a silent race was underway, a race to uncover the truth of consciousness and possibly even to control what happens after death. During the Cold War, both the CIA and the KGB launched covert programs exploring psychic phenomena, remote viewing, and consciousness projection. The CIA's Project Stargate and MK Ultra, infamous for their mind-altering experiments, included obscure sub-projects focusing on death and near-death states. Former operatives later claimed that attempts were made to induce controlled out-of-body experiences in volunteers, simulating the moment of death to study what lay beyond. In declassified reports, terms like ethereal interface and post-biological awareness field appear cryptically, hinting that these agencies may have believed the soul could be studied like any other energy source. In the Soviet Union, military-funded parapsychology labs reportedly studied dying patients using sensitive electromagnetic sensors. One chilling document referenced a phenomenon called soul discharge, a detectable burst of energy at the moment of death, accompanied by measurable changes in the room's electromagnetic field. Some scientists claimed that this discharge remained for several minutes, as if something was still present after the heart had stopped. Meanwhile, whispers emerged of a manuscript fragment found during U.S. operations in the Middle East, possibly during the Gulf War, described by insiders as a map of the soul's departure. The document, believed to be a partial translation of the legendary Book of Passing, described 7 realms, each guarded by a being of pure intention or absolute denial, and claimed that souls were interrogated, not judged, in each stage. If true, this fragment could represent the closest the modern world has come to rediscovering the long-lost guide to the afterlife. But before it could be published, the document vanished. Researchers involved with the study were reassigned, silenced, or discredited. Some claimed that religious institutions and intelligence communities both had vested interests in suppressing anything that could dismantle the mystery of death, which has long been a pillar of power, and so the cycle repeated: discovery, suppression, denial. All the while, ordinary people continued to report near-death experiences. But the official narrative remained: death is final, and anything beyond is unknowable, or so we were told. Then, something unexpected happened. In the quiet corners of the internet, on encrypted message boards and esoteric forums, rumors began to surface. A mysterious manuscript, allegedly found in a remote monastery in the Caucasus Mountains, had been digitally scanned and partially translated. It wasn't complete, it wasn't verified, but its contents were enough to shock the global spiritual underground. This resurrected book, which some believe to be the long-lost Book of Passing, was titled in fragments: The Codex of Transition, The Witnessing, or simply, The Path. The first translated sections described vivid visions, a moment of detachment where the soul rises above its body and sees the earth as a fragile echo, a gate of mirrors where the soul faces every lie it ever told, a tunnel not of light, but of memory, where one must walk barefoot through every pain it ever caused. What made these descriptions chilling was how they matched, almost exactly, accounts from near-death survivors, and not just from the modern world. Parallels were found in Mayan glyphs, Egyptian scrolls, and even ancient Nordic sagas, all of which described a journey of unveiling, a cosmic reckoning. The leak spread like wildfire in certain circles, though it was quickly removed from mainstream platforms. Those who had read it said they were never the same. Some claimed it gave them peace, others were overwhelmed with terror or awe. A few researchers who analyzed the phrasing and symbology suggested that the text had been constructed from multiple ancient sources, stitched together by scribes who knew how to hide divine truth in allegory. What was most remarkable was not just what the book said, but how readers began to dream the same dreams, report the same visions, and speak in terms that echoed the book's language. It was as if the manuscript had unlocked something latent within the human psyche, a memory the soul had always carried but forgotten. Still, no mainstream historian or theologian has validated the manuscript. Critics call it a hoax, a fantasy, for spiritual thrill seekers. But believers say the book doesn't need to be proved. It proves itself the moment you read it. And so, in a world dominated by science, technology, and doubt, an ancient voice has returned, whispering, guiding, reminding us of a truth that predates every empire. Death is not the end. It is a return. And someone, or something, left us a map. So now we stand at the edge of the unknown, armed with fragments of ancient scrolls, whispers from forbidden archives, leaked manuscripts, and experiences shared by those who have nearly crossed the veil. And we ask, is it real? Does this mysterious book, whether scattered in pieces or hidden in full, truly reveal what happens when we die? To the skeptical mind, the answer is simple: no. The book is a clever fabrication, a psychological salve for humanity's oldest fear. Death, they argue, is the cessation of brain activity. What follows is decay, not destiny. In this view, the Tibetan Bardo states, the Egyptian underworld, the Gnostic heavens, they are metaphors at best, superstitions at worst. But to millions around the world who have touched death and returned, the metaphors feel more real than waking life. They describe the same tunnel, the same light, the same overwhelming love, and the same urgent message that life is a test and death is a mirror. And those ancient texts, they echo their stories like an ancestral chorus singing across centuries. Perhaps that's the true power of the book, not as a literal map penned by one culture, but as a shared human memory, written over and over again in different languages, different symbols, always pointing to the same door. Perhaps the book is not a single artifact, but a collective, soul blueprint scattered across civilizations like breadcrumbs leading home. Yet the question lingers: why is this knowledge so often hidden, suppressed, or denied? Is it because it threatens the very foundation of organized religion? Because it gives individuals power over their own salvation? Or because it proves that death is not an end, but a beginning that no empire can control? There is another possibility, that those in power have always known. That behind the locked doors of Vatican vaults, beneath the ruins of burned libraries, and inside government black sites, Pieces of the truth still lie, protected not from the unworthy, but from those who would weaponize it. But in the age of the internet, the walls are crumbling. What was once hidden is now leaking. Old books are being scanned. Voices long silenced are rising again. And the mysterious book, whether literal or metaphorical, is no longer a relic of the past. It is becoming a call to live with awareness, to love more deeply, to shed the illusion of permanence, to remember that this life, as beautiful and as painful as it is only the beginning of something far greater. So what is the truth? Is this book real? Is it a hoax? Or is it the oldest revelation mankind has ever known, returning when we need it most? Maybe the answer isn't written in pages. Maybe it's written in you.